Welcome back to République. Episode 4 of a 5-episode series is never a dull place to be. And sure enough, by the time we're through with this, we're going to have opinions.
If she doesn't want them, we'll take them. We're not gonna steal, but if she doesn't want them... I have a key. I have a funny key. They'll be disappointed. I cannot stay here. They left us something else, too. Hello?
Viewers, I'm not going to be coy about this. Episode 4 of République is not, in the very strictest sense, real. We'll get more into that shortly, but for the meantime, our OmniView screen has a number of interesting things to imply to us. Firstly, we have no map. This is going to be irritating. Second, we have a new-ish protagonist, 390, no H. Maybe we'll call her Hope. Maybe we won't. She doesn't have Hope's passport, but she does, somehow, have all of the rest of her stuff, including all her collectibles. This is weird, but appreciated. Finally, we're going to be seeing a lot of intermittent visual glitches while looking around in OmniView. This is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, but it's very annoying in context. Oh, and right, we're outside. Like, actually outside, with real rain, and real skies and real stars. It's a nice change, even if it's not, maybe, strictly speaking, real. I guess we should talk a bit about that, huh? Episode 4 was, in retrospect, a little bit divisive. It launched a year after Episode 3 concluded with an enormous cliffhanger, and instead of being straight, it was... well, we'll see how it was, but needless to say, it could have gone over a little bit better than it ultimately did. I think the impression it left was definitely harmed by it being not presented back-to-back with Episode 3. I think that the wait itself was quite irritating, but also the fact of the wait might have actually made it harder for people to notice certain details about the opening of this episode. Notably, it is the first episode we've seen that hasn't opened with us getting a phone call. It will, in time, become much more apparent what's actually going on in this episode, but I think the game did intend for players to come into it immediately suspicious.
This gate is locked.
I think the context of this episode's release caused there to be a lack of clarity at a time when players wanted it the most, and that this was the tragic underlying cause of the small backlash it received. And I'd like to help avoid that.
The key! We can open it with the funny key. It fits! We won!
My gate!
Oh!
Our gate! Yes, sir. You are right. You broke the key! You broke the key of the lock! No, she broke it. You make a mess of things! Yes, sir. Do you want to be here forever? No, sir. I am disappointed. Yes, I know you are, and I apologize. Pick this up! Yes, sir. Pick this up now! You know what the captain says. Clean garden, clean conscience, sir. Do not let this happen again! No, sir. Do not let this happen again! No, sir. Do you wish to see the light of day? Yes, sir, I do.
The moral of this story is, don't wait years between content updates.
That key is useless. We have to find another way out of here.
Episode 4's other peculiarities will be much more obvious.
Welcome, old friend, to my domain, a land lit by moonlight and sodden by rain. The girl you are guiding will need your assistance to conquer the giant's most dreadful resistance. But your omniview powers were sadly corrupted back when her escape was last interrupted. Though do not despair, for you have one ability which may set her free of this evil facility. Her phone is equipped with the means to record the data I seek and prodigiously hoard. That shovel before you was left by the giant. If you scan it for me, I would be most compliant. The knowledge it yields is absolute treasure. We'll look out for each other, measure for measure.
For various reasons, we will not have Cooper text-to-speeching in our ear in this episode. Instead, we have the data broker. We also have a minor, but also not really very minor, gameplay change. Rather than just clicking on stuff from a camera, we have to actually scan in first person.
I wish to discuss something. Where is that steamroller of yours?
Mama? In the office.
He sleeps most hours of the day.
If something unfortunate were to compromise our research in any way, and this goes for both of you, I want you to execute Directive 95.
Is the arrival at risk?
Are we expecting an attack, sir?
I expect nothing, but I anticipate everything. If this zone is boarded by any government agency, or if we are aggressed by terrorist action, you will carry out 95. Understood? Dr. Amash, you look sour.
It is... Sir, I am afraid I cannot personally execute such a directive.
Dr. Perez.
We are scientists.
Then you will enlist the skill set of someone or something that is willing to break a mirror for metamorphosis. Do you know of someone like this?
We do, sir.
When he wakes up, we will explain it to him.
One thing that's not going to change is that we are still going to be overhearing a lot of conversations. And the conversations we overhear in this episode, ironically considering its reputation, are probably going to tell us more about the plot of this game than anything else we've overheard so far.
That gate was a dead end, but there may be a door somewhere in this graveyard that we can explore. For here in God's acre, where souls come to rot, is a way to the next world, and X marks the spot.
Happily, the data broker has as solid a grasp on meter and scansion as Hope did in her own poetry. And no, I will never, ever get tired of throwing shade at Child of Light.
It appears you are trying to open a door in a way that won't work but used to before. It requires a PIN code which you don't possess. In addition to that, your Omni's a mess. Until all your powers are working again, keep an eye out for the relevant PIN.
Okay, so that was a little bit of a half-rhyme, but I think my point still stands. More importantly, note the implication that we're not going to be able to hack open doors anymore. We're going to have to, actually walk over there and press buttons. Also, there are TVs.
The theoretical DNA is that you could store the total world information, which is 1.8 zettabytes, at least in 2011, in about 4 times the DNA.
Well, that was blunt. And real. That was Sriram Kasuri, who really did pioneer a technique to encode information in DNA, with some help. Admittedly, it was less than a megabyte, but yeah, scaling exists. Now, here's going to be our problem for the next couple of hours. We're going to have to explore a number of, not massive, but reasonably expansive and not very straightforward areas, with no map. And we're going to have to collect a hell of a lot of things in person. The environments aren't completely bland, but they are dark and foggy, so it's all academic. It is not, however, very difficult to locate our ultimate goal. On top of all that, Episode 4 introduces an entirely new variety of collectible for us to worry about, although that does replace video games, so, you know.
Oh, it's something.
These petri dish samples were earlier means of storing all knowledge within human genes. To play back an encrypted audio scene, look for the sequencing data machine.
They are, functionally, just Sega tapes again. This episode also contains actual Sega tapes. And of course, tying all of this together is Mammoth, a large man who likes violence and long walks around graveyards. One thing which people rightly dislike about this episode is the fact that there are several collectibles that you can only see using the first-person camera. Classic variations include underneath the camera, behind objects, and within dense vegetation. This one almost combines all three.
These chains form an X on the door to the crypt. Perhaps we could break them, were the right tool equipped. If you find such an item, then have the girl nab it. Trespass and theft have become quite her habit.
And obviously we are not getting out of here without going through a big chain of events that totally coincidentally will have us exploring the whole place. There is of course plenty to collect, and it is an absolutely hilarious time without a guide. Needless to say, we're going to be spending a lot of time wondering where Mammoth is. We don't have our map or our handy X-ray ability, and we can't hack him either to see where his route is, so we're pretty much reduced to using our eyes. Here we have a pretty clear view of him in OmniView, but OmniView, of course, has limited range, so it's kind of a pain to locate him using that. You can use Real View, of course, but that, of course, means that you're working in real time. It's fun.
Stephen Dardanning, former editor of the Evening Standard, is gone, and with him a legacy people around here would just as soon forget. I've written my share of obits over the years, but this one's left me with a double-clove hitch in my gut. And it isn't because I've been asked to memorialize a man I've never met. I am effectively replacing him. I am sitting in his office now, reclining in his squeaky old chair. Worst of all, when I asked what his cause of death was, they told me, creative differences.
I wonder if this little moment happened before or after Tregorzov's speech introducing the morning bell. Man can be pretty straightforward in his villainy when he wants to be, can't he? Convenient as it is that cameras will automatically point towards Ope when you shift, it can't half be disorienting without a map.
We should respect the dead. I'll pick this up.
Some good old-fashioned dialogue dissonance. The first-person camera, by the way, always starts out pointing wherever Ope is looking. That can be pretty irritating too.
Val, I keep finding you here.
No,
What is the matter?
nothing. I was tending to...
You must quit spinning your wheels here. It is bad for your work.
He was our first.
I understand. But I am telling you this as your friend. This could get you in trouble. What do they think when they see you here?
Why would they be watching?
They are always watching. Derringer monitors the water in the moat.
Oh, that false crisis. In my country, too, there is a water crisis.
Abal, do not get political on me.
Terminus drinks more water than all the mirrors combined.
You're changing the subject. Have any of the mirrors died of thirst? Did this one here die of thirst? Look, I'm telling you. If they see you mourning them in this way, it will not be good for you.
How do you survive all of this?
a ball. I make it a point not to look directly at them. If I do that, I will see my own reflection. I have trained myself to stare just over their heads when I speak to them. You asked me how I survive? I took the idea of a person I hate, and I practiced very hard at becoming him.
Just as episode 3 had a focus on Matty Sade, in episode 4 we're going to be hearing a lot from Drs. Amash and Peretz, and eventually learning how they fit into whatever the hell it is that's going on around here.
Time and tide waits for no man.
Mammoth has two great redeeming, if slightly off-putting, features. First, he's very talkative. Second, his leg brace makes his footsteps very loud. This means, if you are unfortunate enough to be close to him, you're probably going to hear him. And if you happen to be playing using a good set of surround sound headphones, you can literally hear him clunk up behind you. Although depending on your perspective, that may or may not be a good thing.
It is broken.
This door will not open with mere elbow grease. The gearbox, it seems, is missing a piece.
You can imagine other huge data sources like all the neuronal files in the brain, which could be encoded into DNA, and again, you could do selective reading of that as needed.
That was George Church, a colleague of Kusuri and a co-author of their paper on next-generation digital information storage in DNA. Again, that video is pretty to the point. I'm not completely sure where the video is from, but I'll give it pretty good odds that it was filmed sometime around September of 2012, when that paper was published. Notably, this happened after Republic's Kickstarter campaign, which launched in April 2012. We know, based on that campaign, that Republic was always going to involve Hope escaping from a shadowy totalitarian state using a stolen phone, which you will use to assume control of the surveillance system. I'm literally reading that from their Kickstarter page. They were very upfront about certain influences, such as 1984. But the game also makes a lot of overt and very substantial references to things that happened during its development, and not just the publication of some video games that Cooper likes, but huge important world events that seem to have informed the opinions of Treglazov and his friends. Now, given the speed with which episodes 2 and 3 followed episode 1, I think it's fair to assume, given some reasonable estimates for how long production would have taken, that the plot of the game was pretty much on lockdown when episode 1 launched.
All is quiet.
But episode 4, this video in fact, episode 4 being released in 2015,
it's something,
is going to directly reference something very notable that happened only a few months before the launch of episode 1. Now, it isn't exactly bleeding-edge speculative fiction, but I think we've got to give Camouflage some props for managing to incorporate what would have, to them, been real-world current events into the plot of their game when it was under development.
An old tape.
We've now managed to scour most of this first environment, and I'm frankly blown away by how little trouble we've run into.
I like this.
Mammoth is not conceptually very complicated, and he's pretty easy to guess. But he cannot half sneak up on you if you're distracted, say, by thinking very hard about plot. Or looking for stuff in hard-to-see places. Like, there absolutely is a book behind this tree. I couldn't even see it rewatching the video. Believe me, I tried. I know it's here. I'm trying to collect it. It's not even easy to collect when you know it's there.
Good night for Fowley.
I guess they're waiting for someone new to die.
this?
Don't ask questions.
Another broken mirror?
What did I say? Just keep digging. I will be back.
You asked too many questions. Yes, sir, you are right. The captain hears the question you didn't ask.
Who are you talking to, Mama?
No one, sir.
Stop digging. I said stop. Did something happen to a mirror?
Did it?
Did you break another mirror?
No, sir, I did not. Maybe I did. No, I surely did not.
Climb out of there. Get up.
I didn't tell you to stop digging.
But I...
Killed another one?
No, sir, I did not.
Calm down, both of you. It's for Octavo.
The librarian. He's dead?
He will be.
We all die someday. Except for the captain.
Shut up!
Well, that's ominous. Also, despite everything, this grave dates the events of the game to July 14th, 2020. See, I told you there was a book. Oh, right.
We're gonna get you! She's broken. Now deep six the body.
We now can confirm what I had been fearing. This giant was born with exceptional hearing. The girl must walk slowly when he is around, or he will most surely pick up on the sound.
Well, we just got literally murdered. Fortunately, none of this is real, so we can just come back at the nearest TV and pretend like nothing happened. Here's me double checking our collectible supply. I wanted to be really sure I got that book. Alas, I did not, and we're going to have to go back. The really fun thing about Mammoth that I didn't fully appreciate until going to record this video is that he doesn't actually spawn in until you enter the graveyard. So I spent a bit of time trying to find him, when he was not in fact there to be found. I conclude he must be somewhere near the broken gearbox, and therefore send Ope running past the X-marked door. Guess where Mammoth spawns?
We're just following orders.
Video games. I do like this idle animation though. Now, you may be thinking that I'm about to fall for the exact same trick for a second consecutive time. And morally, you're right. Fortunately though, when I set the path I happen to be looking through the camera that's right next to where Mammoth actually chooses to emerge. And so it finally dawns on me that this game is actually bullshit. Now, if you happen to be fortunate enough to know exactly where Mammoth is and where he's going, which...
Everything on top and nothing handy, sir.
At this point I do, because I've got a map handy. The safest place to be is normally right behind him. I say normally because you had better believe the game is going to start introducing some complications to this formula pretty soon. But for the time being, it's pretty straightforward. He's about to walk right past where we need to be and then off somewhere else. Which suits us perfectly.
Your trick isn't over. Keep watch. Yes, sir, we will.
This goddamn book. With that finally out of the way, there's really only one more thing of interest to collect in the graveyard, and it's over here in much plainer sight.
They're limited by our storage capabilities. So, for example, if we could store everything, we wouldn't be throwing out data. We wouldn't be writing on top of reusing disks and tape drives.
Nor would we feel any need to pay through the nose for slightly more spacious solid-state drives on our laptops, Apple. One aspect of Church Gown Kasuri's audacious DNA storage scheme that didn't make it into the game was that it turned out not to be very reliable. Their encoding method frequently resulted in long strings of identical DNA bases, which, it turns out, apparently, is actually very difficult to sequence reliably, leading to errors in retrieval, which is not ideal for a storage medium.
Because we have the address, we know where it goes back, so once we sequence everything, we're able to reconstruct what the original message that you're encoding or digital information that you were encoding in there.
It also happened that, about the same time this paper was published, a different group of researchers, working for the European Bioinformatics Institute, came up with a different and much more reliable way of doing the same task. So that wasn't great for them either. Unfortunately, it turns out that much of this discussion is academic, because it also turns out that storing information in DNA is prohibitively expensive.
Be careful, sir. That is poisonous.
Yes, Mammoth, I know that. Above.
Yes, he knows.
One of the female mirrors is having an issue I think you may be better suited for.
I will be right there.
Why is all of this out?
I'm extracting toxin.
Why?
Because I want to know.
Are you making a weapon?
Why would you say something like that?
I am merely considering who we work for.
You're being paranoid.
Occupational hazard.
It was estimated that using this method of encoding to store information in DNA would incur a cost of $12,400 per megabyte to encode, and $220 per megabyte to retrieve. So, probably not going to supplant the humble solid-state drive anytime soon. They did, however, go on to estimate that the technology might be cost-effective for somebody on Earth by about 2023. So that's something. I know there's a book hidden in one of these planters. There it is. Hope. Hope.
Oh, it's something.
You would not believe how easy it is to get lost in this room. Possibly it has occurred to you that this convenient bolt cutter lying directly underneath a conspicuous swarm of glowing bees might be a trap. If it has, then I guess congratulate yourself on your well-developed gamer instincts.
All I am saying is if something happens, I hope you rescue your two-legged children before your six-legged ones.
Of course! You're being insane about. Besides, nothing is going to happen to us. You know that. Abal?
Of course.
Say, if my bees die, so do your precious flowers.
The desert rose is renowned for surviving in adverse conditions. I am sure they can live without your colony.
My bees make honey. What do your flowers yield?
Death. The roots are quite toxic, you know.
Therein lies the difference between you and me, Abal. As a hobbyist, I don't delight myself with pain and suffering.
You do not have to. As an occupation, your bees are content to do it for you.
Yeah, the bees are going to be trouble. We're just going to ignore that bolt cutter for now and continue exploring this place at our leisure. How many attempts do you think it's going to take me to get a clear shot of the poster hanging on the wall there? Honestly though, there's not really a lot to say about this place. It's a greenhouse.
I like this.
It's also a lab. There's plants and science stuff lying around. And bees for some reason. Most of what we find out about this whole place, not just this specific part, is going to come from, well, all the audio in this room. Which is a lot, by the way.
Are you cold?
I'm okay.
The heat is out. Not just my office, but the entire building.
On pace.
Yes, keep the blood flowing.
Oh, these are beautiful.
Thank you.
And they grow right here on the windowsill.
Most times of the year, you see them on the roads. Fields of them, growing freely.
I'm afraid I didn't see much besides snow on the drive-in.
People think this country is all desert. Hot, flat, dry. But we are high up in the mountains.
May I sit?
You are a gifted comparative genomicist. Do you know why I am here?
To offer me a job.
An opportunity. Did your medical director explain it to you?
Briefly. Encoding.
Precisely. Are you up to the challenge, Dr. Aman?
With all due respect, it is not much of a challenge. A zettabyte may be a lot of data for you, but for us, it is a trifle. At most, we are talking about a gram of synthetic DNA.
I'm not talking about synthetic DNA.
Then where do you want your data stored?
Where, indeed?
Oh, it's something.
Earlier, I mentioned that the first-person camera starts out pointing wherever Ope is looking. Watch this bite me incredibly here. Takes me a bit to realise that this is the thing that we've just listened to.
The heat is out. Not just my office, but the entire...
It's incredibly annoying.
No.
Abal, what is it? Sit down.
I think we killed someone.
What? Stop! Stop this pacing. Sit. Abal, what happened?
Not either. A pre-cal. We drowned him. We must have drowned him in the moat.
Why was the pre-cow in the moat?
I don't know! At first I thought it was one of ours. Then I was sure a Prizrak had found us out. But it was a pre-cal. A male pre-cal.
Okay, Abal. We have to get him out of there, okay?
I feel so bad for Mama.
Abal, we must leave here.
We can't
can make this go away, right?
And it's worse than that. I heard the transmission.
You did. You know what I have been trying to tell you.
You're right about it.
It's the American government.
You're right.
They will put us in jail. They will lock us away forever.
We'll figure something out. But first, we must get the precal out of the moat. We bury him before anyone knows he's missing.
When did life become this?
A male precal got somewhere he shouldn't have and has drowned. Shit. Also, what was that about the government?
Do you have a research partner?
Not currently.
Good. I have just the person in mind for you. Do you know Dr. Amash?
Never heard of him.
You'll like her.
Her? Her? Yes.
Does it bother you?
Does what bother?
That Dr. Amash is a woman.
Of course not.
Okay.
She's American?
No. Iranian, I think. Dr. Peretz, what would you say is the most important consideration in your particular field?
Ethics.
Ethics. Are you ethical, Dr. Peretz?
Certainly.
No, you are not. If you were, I wouldn't be here in your office right now. Are you offended?
A little bit.
You are, however, principled. And that is why I am here. Do you know what I am proposing to do in my research facility?
I think I do.
I'm going to ask you again, what is the most important consideration in your particular field?
For me personally, can it be done?
I'll see you Monday, and together we'll find out.
Overseer, how may I help you, sir?
Oh, please don't get up. I am actually looking for Dr. Peretz.
I believe he is reading to the mirrors.
Reading? They received that sort of stimulation then?
Only very recently. It is your manifesto.
Our manifesto?
Of course.
Is this yours?
I am sorry I did not inform you that I would be bringing a radio.
It is okay.
I do not use it anymore.
Why is that?
Mammoth. He gets upset. He heard me tell Noam, Dr. Peretz, that the radio waves cut through our brains. They are invisible signals. Mammoth did not like that. And once he has an idea in his head, it is difficult to get rid of it.
I see. I would like you to start using the radio again. But only when Mammoth is around.
Sir?
Yes. Yes, I will watch from that feed, whenever he enters the room.
What is the scientific purpose of this?
You said Dr. Peretz was with the mirrors. I think I will go see him now.
Yes, sir.
In summation, an audacious research project is attempting to encode information in non-synthetic DNA and has started referring to human children as mirrors. Meanwhile, this machine is basically our new Sega cassette player. We just insert petri dishes, and it spits out audio files that I will add to the roundup at the end of the video. Now that we're done collecting everything, let's go walk headlong into a trap.
We could use these to open the door with the chains on it.
Who's in here? Yeah, you. You left these. Don't be so careless. Yes, sir.
While the girl's fearful cries should not go unheeded, the giant has taken the item we needed. So pilfer the pockets of that aimless brute, but be wary of bees as you steal back the loot.
Welcome to the annoying gimmick. Bees will materialise periodically around items that show up as red in OmniView. If you walk too close to where the bees are, you will get stunned, and you will make a lot of noise, and Mammoth will come running to wherever you are. It sucks, and I highly advise against it. Anyway, obviously we were never going to get through this episode without at least one pickpocket. So here's Mammoth carrying a bolt cutter. Notice that there are flowering plants everywhere. Everywhere there are flowers is somewhere there could be bees.
Let us see what he has on it. I have it.
Looks above board.
Well, that was tense. My nerves were not helped by this happening or by wondering how the hell we didn't get seen. Seriously, what even happened there? This just leaves the small matter of getting the hell out of here. A feat which we will accomplish thanks to the return of actual good mechanic contextual cover orbiting. Good work, Hope.
Looks above board.
This is a great point to look through our collectible stash, so let's do that. By the way, if you were put off by Cooper talking a lot about video games, you're probably going to find episode 4 quite refreshing.
Bolt cutters will help reveal the secrets within, where X marks the spot.
Like Cooper, the data broker has some opinions on the things we pick up and he'll tell us about them. I was so blown away by him not speaking in rhyme that I didn't notice he'd taken up haiku.
The Tibetan books of the dead recall Dante's infernal romp, swapping the bestial Garion and Cerberus with Tibet's own blood dancers. Such fear is squandered. It is better directed at what an overseer knows is truly fearful. The book proposes to educate its reader in the arts of self-protection, but we are better guarded against presuppositions of a hellish, secret world. An overseer perceives that controlling the line matters more than grasping after transmissions. To correct wrong speech, wrangle the tongue.
Can't say incorrect things if you never speak. You can't see it, but I'm tapping the side of my head. This doesn't really work in audio, does it?
Another religious text that preaches out of its depth. Marx's manifesto declares factory, church, and state alike subordinate to the workers, on whom all depends. This flattery mumbles on through history, ignorant of time and place. Marx, the false prophet, preached to an audience in the thrall of industry, not to those who run the modern service economy, wherein everyone spins information without organization, like spiders on caffeine. Once a carrier holds such uncontrolled information, it loses neutrality and becomes political, sexual, diversional. This is why the overseer must control the line with a hard hand. Only under his true grip can information find a proper place in shaping the proletariat. Marx is obsolete. Mere content for the line. Hide this lesser manifesto well.
It seems Treglazov would have us believe he's actually broadly sympathetic to Marx, but rather than thinking he's wrong, thinks he's simply outdated, his time come and gone. I'll bet you money he introduces himself as a classical liberal.
John's Gospel celebrates the Logos, God's inner identity. Yet the translation of this, as God's Word, has led to a sloppy veneration of the Bible by those who take the word literally. Content requires context. But as this book shows, we divorce the two every day, as though it were a reflex. Broadcasters peddle sacrilege as they blindly profane whatever they try to confess. This book fails its own ends.
Maybe I'm wrong in thinking this, but it occurs to me that maybe picking a fight with biblical literalism in John of all books isn't quite the philosophical power move that Treglazov thinks it is.
The irreligious are no better at saving themselves from illusions of holy ghosts, creating new fantasies instead. They hardly rise above their ape ancestors, hands caught in slender-mouthed jars while grasping for truth. They think we evolve towards some high-end point. No, we evolve into our environments, which is the real danger in a digital age. Left to themselves, communities fragment into niche web forums and social media echo chambers. Only an overseer can save them from lapsing into a dark information environment.
While in this analysis Treglazov does score some solid burns against Facebook and Twitter, he also reads the theory of evolution exactly backwards, the clod.
In Hesse's Siddhartha, his hero is a journeyman of the spirit who finishes what he begins and presents his soul as his masterwork. This only encourages our sickness since the Cold War. The threat of nuclear weaponry turned the human spirit into an echo, bouncing among rocks, dwindling in force, landing on no cosmic ear. Does our manifesto not save people from Hesse's navel-gazing self-absorption? We boldly proclaim what is true for the digital age, while Hesse whispers mere vanity.
What the hell did any of that shit mean? Our other major collectible in Episode 4, in the absence of video games, is going to be Petri dishes. These things don't contain any media or any analyses for me to respond to, but they do just contain a lot of meaty conversations.
Take it or leave it. I'm not offended, but it is a mistake.
It's a very nice tie, but I need to go out in the brass. There's no other choice.
You walk out there like that, and all the public sees is a battleship.
Well, there's no way around it. It's so...
Why, Richard, you seem unhinged. Do you need to lie down?
I get like this sometimes.
Look, it's just a tie. Wear what you like. I won't belabor the point further.
No, it's not that. I'm not a face man. Hate this dog and pony show.
Relax. This is our opportunity to tell our side of things. We've done nothing wrong.
What's my opener?
Just tell them the truth. Here, tell them what you told me the night of the inauguration.
I believe in what this agency has been entrusted to do, right down to my soul.
Soul's good.
To defend our nation, our allies, and our agents abroad from outside threats.
Lose the but excellent. And remember...
Remember what?
Civ lib.
Oh, all right. and to defend our nation while protecting the civil liberties of our citizens.
Good. But Vice Admiral Matthews, what about your vast array of data centers? Those can't strictly be for saving information on other foreign threats. Surely they are used to store evidence on U.S. citizens as well.
Of the data centers on U.S. soil? Absolutely not. We do not hold data on the citizens of the United States there.
Stop. No, I'm impressed. Marjorie will be proud of you.
Oh, that reminds me. I should call her.
After. First, you need to go out there and tell the people how we intend to save them, Mr. Director.
I'm not certain, but my guess is that the inauguration they refer to was that of Barack Obama.
Are you watching the TV?
I am. It would seem my whistleblower made good.
It wasn't her. This guy was a system admin, operating under his own warped sense of justice.
What? What about my plant?
She never made her move.
Well, what the hell is this guy's story?
I don't know, but I'd prefer we had control of all the variables here.
Vice Admiral, you don't need to talk to me about control. Just follow the protocol. Tax evasion, stripper girlfriend. In fact, if there's something you want me to run a search on, I'd be happy.
Don't get carried away. Keep the day-to-day to us. I do wish we had the prefab package with what's-her-name. She came with a strong motive to discredit.
Well, look on the bright side. No one can trace this back to you. Plausible deniability. Now we can hasten our move to Terminus.
I suppose.
Richard, this is the black eye we needed. Let's fumble the follow-up like we discussed, and look grossly incompetent doing so. Then we'll go talk to the DOD about outsourcing.
You sound almost flippant.
Where is this noble fool? I want to send him a token of appreciation.
And I'd like to send him up the river on charges of violating the Espionage Act. But he's fled the country.
To what destination?
Russia.
Ah, a spy after my own heart.
This one, on the other hand, is crystal clear. They're talking about Edward Snowden, who seems to have accidentally preempted Treglazov and Matthews' grand plan to place a whistleblower inside the US intelligence community. Man, this must be how the writers on House of Cards feel all the time.
And what's the matter?
Lately, you sound distant.
Probably our new encryption tech.
I don't mean the phone line.
I know what you mean. I'm flat out with Terminus. Data collection is a beguiling Lorelei, Richard. It's keeping all of us very engaged at present.
Let's be clear about something. You signed an oath to collect and store for the clandestine agencies of the U.S. government. That does not empower you to tamper with or exploit any of the information in Terminus, nor does it allow you to play peeping Tom into the private lives of the American people.
Vice Admiral, we are in business together, in pursuit of a common interest. But do not tell me what to do. I am not an American citizen. Terminus is not U.S. property. You rent from me.
Hey, calm down. I didn't mean to ruffle your feathers.
We have no feathers to ruffle. 40 years of living in your country left me plucked bare.
Sorry you feel that way. We are in your debt. As a nation, and me, personally.
Don't get soft, Richard. I didn't make your problems go away out of some personal obligation. I just think you're the best man for the job. So go do that job. And leave me alone to do mine.
A far-reaching data-gathering operation, a groundbreaking storage technique, and a secretive surveillance state. Lots of things seem to be falling into place lately. So why do I still have the very strong feeling that we're missing something big?